from extracurriculars, which really evidence that in this US application process, they really do want to know who you are as a person. And I think the other way that they do that is by asking you to submit a personal essay. I guess this is probably the first time in your lives you guys have been asked to write an essay about yourself. Would that be right, Chris?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, where if you walk into an exam room, it's not Shakespeare or Hamlet, it's all about you. And I think that it is a very, and that's where Crimson sort of really helps, because it's a very foreign concept to us, and we Americans, I'm sure, are much better at it, but we're not very good at expressing ourselves like that. So that's where it is very important to, I mean, the great part about that essay is they do give you a lot of freedom. They give you 9 prompts, which you should select and write off one, but they are very generalized in that sense. And I think if you really do have a passionate topic in mind, you really can adjust it to any of those prompts, to be perfectly honest. So I think, it was one of the most challenging things for me. I mean, aching over every word of of the 650, and
it's not very long.
Yeah, it's not long at all. But trust me, it takes a very long time. But I mean, I did enjoy it, and I think I learned a lot about myself and everything about that I've done, and that sort of. I mean, it's a very fun, not such fun process, but enlightening and very reflective. And you look back on it, and I read it down, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. So I'm very happy I did it, but it was very daunting at the start, because I was just like, when I was 0 out of 650 words, I'm like, oh, I got a long way to go. So,
Was it a scary thing for you, Allie, to approaching that personal essay?
Yeah, I think it's just because it's so alien. Like, it's very different to something you've ever done before, that you kind of think. I feel like when I first heard about it, I was kind of like, oh, cool, like an essay about myself. Like, that's all good. And then you get in to start doing it, and you're like, wow, like 650 words this is my only time to speak directly to the admissions officer about anything I want, and tell them, basically why they should accept me into their university, what part of me, like what makes me a good candidate, what makes me a good fit for their school, what makes me, valuable as a student within their cohort. And so I think that once you start realizing that, you start to realize the weight and importance of this essay that you're writing. And I mean, it's not so challenging. Well, I'm not going to say it's not challenging. I'm saying that it's not so like completely and utterly like mentally difficult in the way, because you're writing about yourself. You're writing about something that you understand, something that you love. Something that our friend Max often says about it is that you just got to take an experience that you've had in your life and draw some meaning from it. You basically write about an experience you've had, write about a period of time you've had in your life, or something valuable that's happened to you, and draw something from it, and basically show the admissions officer, what you've learned, how you've grown as a person, and what you reflect on, and why you think that part of your life is important to you as a person. And so I think once you realize the direction that you want to head in, the personal statement becomes a lot about how to represent yourself in the best way, how to word it in the best way, how to sort of communicate what you're trying to say in the best way possible. And like Chris said, I think that's where Crimson comes in really handy in terms of structuring and all that kind of stuff. It's definitely very invaluable, the help that they give you in that realm.
Yeah, I think a lot of people say where Crimson really helps too is just giving you the moral support.
That,
you can talk about yourself and be proud of who you are. And it's okay to talk about your vulnerabilities.
100%.
And as you said, Ellie, you can pick perhaps a very small event in your life that ended up having a lot of meaning.
Definitely.
And I think another thing to keep in mind in terms of that personal essay is that when you're applying to these top tier American schools, everyone has these great academic scores and a long list of extracurricular activities. But I think the essay, and in terms of the actual admissions officers and what they really enjoy reading, is that bit. And I think it is the one bit where it is really unique and tailored to yourself, and it's where you really got to get the chance to differentiate yourself. So that's why, and it also is, a very personal thing that it's very personal how much you write, and it's also like, I hope they like me. I don't want them to reject me.
It leaves you a little bit vulnerable.
Yeah, I know. You really got to put yourself out there, and that's why it is a very daunting thing.
It's the one part where you can't just like tick a box. You know what I mean? It's the one part where they don't look at it and be like, write academics, write extracurriculars. It's the part where they look at it and say, okay,
is this guy going to be the right fit?
Is this kid the kid that we want there? And I think that's why it's so important. Because like Chris said, everything else just opens the door. This makes your legs work and walks you in.
Exactly. No, it's true.
It's a lovely analogy.
I like that.
It's true. And I think what most people don't realise is beyond the personal statement, these universities often ask their own individual essay questions. So having been through the process, can you describe what the the Penn essay questions were like and the Duke essay questions were
So,
like?
a lot of every university has a different supplementary essay question. Penn was a bit more straightforward than others. Like some universities like to take their own very unique take on it. Like University of Chicago gets the current students to write the questions. I know USC's was like describe yourself in 3 words, but Penn was sort of like why do you want to go to this college, and sort of that's where you got to say what you're going to offer them as well as why they should, know, why you want to go.
Yes.
So, I mean, it wasn't as hard, so to say, as the personal essay, because the personal essay is about yourself. But I think it does require a lot more research, and you have to show a very in-depth knowledge that you have actually, you actually are invested in going to this university, and you're not just like, oh, I'm going to apply to all the Ivy Leagues, I'm just going to write a quick essay for this, because it's not all this other stuff.
The same essay.
You could copy and paste for a lot of them, but you really have to personally tailor it to that school, so they know that you actually really want to go there, because they don't want to have kids that don't want to go there.
Correct.
For sure.
Just ticking boxes.
Like for me, when my 2 supplementary questions, in addition to my personal statement, was the first one, why do you want to go to Duke? And the second one was asked me to speak about an experience that I'd had as a member of a community, and like sort of an experience I'd had within a community and the meaning of community and that kind of a thing.
Right.
I think the hard part about it, I think the supplementary that differentiates from the personal statement, is that my Duke one, my Why Duke essay, was only 150 words for the limit, which is just a bit challenging in the way, because I adore, like Duke is my dream school and I can't believe I'm going there. So giving me 150 words to write about how much I love it, I think it's challenging because you want to put in so much as you can. You have so much more you could write. I could write like 2 pages about why I want to go to Duke. But like I got 150 words, which is, barely like a bio of someone. I think that's the amount of characters you can have in a tweet or something like that. So it's like, it's definitely challenging in terms of the word limit and everything, but for sure research I think is so important, and definitely really saying to the school that you really understand it. Like I reference specific programs that the school offered, specific facilities that they have, and also though it does come down to like being genuine, being really authentic and being really genuine about the reason why you want to go there, because ultimately a school knows that you don't want to go to the campus just because like they have a pretty green square in the middle. You know what I mean?
A lot of them do.
Like, a lot of them do. A lot of them have. They all know how amazing they are, I think, in the way how much, how incredible opportunities they have. But the real reason is, why do you want to go there? Like, you specifically. It's not what do we offer you, it's why do you want to go? Exactly. You know what I mean? And that's what I think it should center around, rather than the school has this, the school has that, the school has this. You know what I mean?
Yes. And I think the last way perhaps that these admissions officers get to know you is through recommendations. So I guess it's your choice then who I believe is 2 teachers, right?
Yeah.
What 2 teachers you ask to upload, and I believe they uploaded themselves, so it's not something you're seeing beforehand.
You don't see it.
And that's where also they're very confused. They're like, I've never done this.
Yes, and obviously they want to help. So how did you work out what teachers to ask? How did you, I guess, approach them and in some ways educate them about the US system and what it involves?
Yeah, I think that I was very, very fortunate. Well, I think actually, first of all, start off with, in terms of like how to approach them and how to ask them, I think that the teacher that you need to pick is someone who knows you well. Like, you need to pick a teacher who's been with you, I think, for like at least a couple of years, maybe like a year, at least a year, definitely at a minimum, who really understands you as a student and understands your passions and your interests, who definitely like also is really invested in you and wants you to do well and really cares about you in that way. And I think that it's really important with that. Going about asking them, I think like with me, I just went up and spoke to my teacher after class and I said, hi, like I'm doing this application thing and it requires teacher recommendations. If you had the time, because obviously we're in the middle of the HSC, it's a very hectic time for the teachers as well. I would really appreciate it if you would be willing to write me a recommendation. And more often than not, they're over the moon about you.
They're probably on a big
exactly, they're so happy. So for me, like I had my ancient history teacher write my recommendation, and ancient was like my best subject at school, so that was definitely a strong point for me. And then also my 4-unit maths teacher, because I spent so much time with her and she understood my plight as a student. I think as well, the good thing about the recommendations is that they provide some context to your grades and in terms of like your high school transcripts, because that is another part that you have to submit.
Ours are very different to American.
For sure, because the way that the standard is. And so like for me, when my first semester of 4-unit, the first term I did, did. It's definitely a very intense subject.
Yes.
And so my first semester, I definitely had a little bit of a dip in my grade than I normally would be as I was adjusting to it. And she was able to provide some some context for that for me within her recommendation, and basically explain and say, this is what she's done to come back from it. And I definitely think it gives the admissions officer something that is really valuable, because it shows the context behind these letter grades that you're getting and all of this kind of stuff. And I think it's really super important. And as well, a lot of people think that recommendations aren't important within the application. They so are. They read them very intensely. I got an email like a week ago, I think, a couple of weeks ago, from the head of the classics department at Duke, which like encompasses ancient history and all that kind of stuff, speaking about how they've noticed that I have a strong interest in ancient history. And the only part of my application in terms of like, I didn't mention it in supplements, I didn't mention it in my personal statement. The only part of my application they would have gauged that from was my grades and my teacher recommendation, which actually speaks about my direct passion for it. So it is important, and they do actually take it into account. It does definitely show you as a student within a classroom, how you're going to perform within a classroom, because ultimately like you're applying for a university. Like they're school institutions. They want to see as well how you do within a classroom environment.
But you're a team player too, and you're helping students around you.
For sure, because they don't, they want kids like that.
Was it hard for you to choose, Chris, or did you know what two teachers you'd asked straight away?
So in terms of the Penn application, I actually had to get 4 references. One was a counsellor, 2 teachers, and 1 other.
Right.
So I mean, I was lucky enough in that situation. Actually, I wasn't. I was actually quite tough, because I did 4-unit maths at school, which is 4 units. I did Latin, which is another 2, English and physics. So I only really had 4 teachers.
Small group of teachers.
I only had 4. And one of them left. And then another one came in and changed at the start of year 12. So I was sort of like, wow, I'm kind of stuffed. I haven't got much selection. But I mean, fortunately enough, I had my accelerated maths teacher who had taught me since year 7, the same class, and that was just a given. I was going to him, and then I had my English teacher who actually came in at the start of year 12, but we actually, towards the end, when I was realizing I'm going to have to ask for a reference, I'm like, oh, we actually get along really well, and he really knows me well, so I put that in. The counsellor, so in terms of approaching them, the school is there, they want to support you, they're not trying to disadvantage you in any way.
It's their way of helping you beyond your walking out of year 12.
Exactly, But I think the one thing that was very nerve-wracking about these references is in terms of everything else in the application, like your academics, your essays, it's you get to do them, but this is the one factor that you can't really control.
Correct.
Because it's completely out of your hands. So that's why it is very important to pick the right teachers, so to say. And I think another thing to also keep in mind with these references, you just try and it's a very new process to them. It's not like an Australian job reference or a university there. And you don't want to make sure that the same thing's being repeated by each teacher. Say I was a good maths student, and one teacher said I was good at maths, the other one said maths, and everyone just says maths 1,000 times. It's useless. You want to make sure that each teacher writes something different about you. That's why you got to pick the ones that know you best in that aspect. And that's why I was very fortunate that I had this widespread of different references, because
in different disciplines, English and
exactly. And then my counsellor who knew me more of the sports side and stuff, so that was very helpful and all that. But I think that's something to always keep in mind.
There's not a lot of space in the supplements. There's not a lot of different sections. It's a couple of pages, I think, that it ends up being once you've actually inserted everything. Maybe with all your supplements and everything, it'd be about 4 or 5 pages in the end. And so you do not want to be repeating things across the application. You can't waste space.
Counts.
Exactly. Every word counts. That's why you have to have different areas showcasing different things. Like Chris said, he had all those different areas. I had areas of maths, ancient. We had to do 4 as well. And then I had I was involved in some performing arts, and I had my performing arts, who was luckily for me also my a mentor teacher for your mentor groups throughout school. He'd been with me since I was in year 9, and then basically wrote about my performing arts ventures and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's definitely, like Chris said, super important.
They really saw you as Allie.
For sure. A really 3D picture of who I was.
And in terms of the whole application itself, not only just in references, is they read 42,000 applicants to Duke this year, and 40,000 plus as well to Penn. But they read so many of these applications, and they've been doing it for years, and they see if you keep repeating yourself, that's what you're going to be branded as. And they're not going to waste their time.
Between 1,000 and 2,000 kids.
So you want to make sure it's interesting and keep them entertained. Exactly. Don't just keep saying the same thing.